All right, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Save the Track Bike presented by Hexagon Cycles. That's hexagoncycles.com. On today's episode, I have Jocelyn Tipton. She is a fixed gear racer who just had her first big races at Mission Crit and Red Hook Crit. And yeah, we just talk about what those experiences were like. We nerd out about bikes. We talk about all kinds of things. So let's just jump into it.
My name is Jocelyn. I ride a fixed gear bike. I got into fixed gear bikes when actually I started dating someone who was into it. And he was doing a lot of fixed gear crits that I was actually kind of envious of. Like, he was doing a lot of traveling and meeting a lot of people that I thought were like similar to me. And so I don't know, I just kind of like hopped right into it. And I mean, now I'm, 2 whole fixed gear crits in, but it like already I feel really welcome to the scene.
Did you cycle before, or did you start fixed gear, or what's your history of cycling in general?
So I started cycling when I moved to Providence, just because I didn't have a car. And it was over time that I would like buy a nicer bike and then maybe crash it or get stolen and then buy another one. And then eventually I started working at a bike shop, the shop that I work at now. And last year I had bought my track bike, and when it came, it had like, it was a track bike. It was just one gear, but it had like hood brakes, like a road bike would. And I rocked that for a little bit, and then my coworkers made fun of me. And then I like ditched the hood brakes and only had one handbrake lever. And then eventually I went to the velodrome in New York, and I was like, oh, I have to get rid of my brake. And that's when I like went completely brakeless. But it's kind of just been a journey of riding fixed. I was riding a road bike for a little bit, but I guess I just like didn't get the same energy from riding road that I did riding fixed. So it's just kind of escalated from there.
Nice. So how long ago was that when you really started embracing fixed gear?
Honestly, I didn't really like get into it until maybe this past September. So it hasn't been a long time, but it was like overnight. I was like, oh my God, like I've been like missing such an awesome sport. Like, it takes so much of like concentration that I didn't really ever have for anything in the past. Like when I'm riding my bike, I'm sure everyone relates to this. When you're riding your bike, like you're not thinking about anything else. Like all the problems just kind of like float away, and especially fixed gear when you're like only thinking about that one thing. So yeah, it hasn't been long, but it's definitely been almost life-changing.
I'm totally with you on that. Like for me, it was just like such an eye-opening experience to like get on that bike and have that feeling. And so I wanted to get into kind of the reason why I had you on the podcast is just because I don't know how I started following you on like Instagram, and I kind of got a little like hints of kind of your story and just how you had a broken collarbone, and then you really wanted to dive into training for these 2 crits. And part of the reason why I want to have people with different experiences on is because I think that I would love to see more people racing in fixed gear crits, and I want to grow the sport. And I especially want to see like more women and WTF folks like getting into the sport as well. And stories like yours, I think, can be like really encouraging for people. So I just kind of want to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like before I had broken my collarbone, I was still really motivated, but it was really only 2 months of me riding my fixed gear before break my collarbone that like I was really, really into it. Like I would be doing like 50-mile rides on my fixed gear with people who were riding road bikes, and it was like no problem for me, and I loved it. I loved doing these like long distance things like on one gear, really pushing myself. And then,
it was the very last week of October that I broke my collarbone, and I remember being incredibly devastated because I had just put myself into this one thing for weeks, and I had already, really started thinking about doing 6-gear crits that my friend had told me about, and I was like just so ready. And then breaking my collarbone was like a really big eye opener because I realized that I had never pushed myself as hard or really just as much into anything that I've ever been interested in as much as I have with 6-gear bikes. So I actually ended up recovering faster than doctors had assumed I would after breaking my collarbone. And I don't know if it was like a weird miracle or if it was just like positive, like, I don't know what the word would be, but just like, thinking about, okay, I'm going to recover. I'm going to get through this like every single day, not seeing any kind of negative to breaking my collarbone, but seeing it as like another goal. So yeah, after recovering, I got like right back on my bike. It was like, I was like full motion again by the new year, which was, less than 8 weeks of recovery. I guess right about 8 weeks. So, my collarbone also was broken in 2 pieces. So there's two fractures, and so 3 pieces rather, which is really hard to recover from apparently, but I did get surgery. So after breaking my collarbone, recovering, getting back on my bike, it was like, mid-dead winter in Rhode Island. And like, even that didn't stop me. And I guess that was like just more momentum for me. It was like, okay, like I just recovered from a broken collarbone. Like winter isn't going to stop me. I'm going to ride. Like I got out there in like 15-degree weather and did like a solid 10 miles if I had to if I really had to do it. And then eventually I met someone who's on Team 2020 as a road cyclist, and she introduced me to her coach. And getting a coach was like the big jump from just doing what I felt intuitive for training, and then having someone who was familiar with training someone tell me exactly what I needed to do. We did like power testing. I started riding a little nicer road bike, and it just like it kind of took off from there. Maybe 8 weeks before Mission Crit, I would have like a 5-day schedule of training. And it felt really great to get up every day and to like have a goal and get through it. And by the end of the week, I could see all of my, my stats as far as watts and heart rate and whatever. And it felt really good to be like, okay, like last week, at the end of last week, I was going at this point, and I just already feel so much stronger. So getting my coach definitely was a big improvement as far as like my fitness. And going into Mission Crit, I was incredibly confident. I didn't do as great as I had even hoped for, but it was still like, wow, if I had not had my coach, like where would I be? And it was a lot of motivation for me at the end of Mission Crit and Red Hook to, set goals for next season.
Yeah, let's talk about what that first experience was like going into Mission Crit, it being your first race and it being such a big race with so much top talent there. I just want to hear like what that experience was like, kind of paint a picture of the day for us.
Yeah, so I had only done one race before Mission Crit, was just like the road race in like our local town. I was riding Danny's bike, my friend who's on 2020. I wasn't completely comfortable on it, and that was my only experience before going into Mission Crit. So I had like a tiny bit of experience riding with a pack and a headwind, and pushing myself for however long, half an hour. So going to Mission Crit, it wasn't as stressful as I thought it would be. Like I thought I was going to be like ready to puke before I even got to the starting line. I thought I was going to be just like so incredibly nervous. But leading up to Mission Crit, I made a lot of friends. Like Instagram cultivated so many relationships for me through the 6-gear scene. Going there, I wasn't alone. As soon as I landed, actually, I This is a really good story. I got to the San Francisco airport. I was waiting for an Uber, and I turn around, and there's a person with a frame case. I'm like, "Oh, hey, man, are you racing too?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, I'm Jocelyn." He's like, "Yeah, I'm Jason." And he's like, "Oh, wait, do you ride a red bike?" And I was like, "Yeah, how'd you know that?" And then the conversation eventually led to, Instagram, the Explore page, and, friends of his who are from New York, where he's from, talking about me. So going there immediately right off the bat, I had people who I could talk to and depend on, and there was support. So that and a couple of other friends who I had talked with pretty regularly over Instagram about fixed-gear bikes and just racing in general, were at Mission Crit. So it felt really welcoming knowing I could get there and know confidently that I had people there to kind of guide me through it. And then, as far as the day of Mission Crit, I was definitely kind of flustered. They had only allotted, I think, an hour to get your registration, or you could have registered the night before, but to even get your timing shift and to get onto the course for their practice, you only had an hour. So I didn't get to ride the course, even though I showed up right on the dot to get my timing shift. So it made me really nervous because that was really the only thing I had to help prepare me just that much more. I was able to ride it once, the lap that you get to do until you get to the start line, and not knowing what gear ratio to use for the qualifier kind of made me anxious. So I just geared what someone else had told me to gear, which ended up being a little too hard for me. I think, which resulted when we all went to the final, knowing what I should have geared, and that's what I geared to. It definitely set me back a little bit. I remember starting maybe the third row into the qualifier, and since I was pushing too hard of a gear during the qualifier, I ended up in the way back starting for the final. So I feel if I geared properly for the qualifier, I might have started up a little further of the pack for the final. But that's just something that you learn for races. You just look at the course and be okay, I know this ratio would be better. Even if you haven't ridden it, you have a little bit of an idea of what you need.
Yeah, for sure. That that course looks a little tricky too, because there's the uphill and then there's the hairpin, but then there's also a lot of fast parts, it looks like.
Yeah, there were two opportunities to really have a breakaway, but I don't know how many turns there were. But all of them were just they were so tight. It felt the first turn was a hairpin, and another one was a right turn going up a hill, and another right turn. Then you have your breakaway. So it's everyone just started up and stopped 3 times before you had an opportunity to really get to the front if you want. And my problem, I think, was not that I was too slow. I think my problem was that I was behind slow people, because every single time we were about to come to a corner, I was ready to blast past them. But a lot of these riders are not confident going into turns, so they're taking it really slow. And then there's a whole line of them that are taking it just too slow, and you can't get around them. And I'm sure that's something, again, I'm going to have to learn how to maneuver through. But I generally, I felt like I was hindered by slow riders because they were just blocking, not even deliberately, just because they couldn't do it. I was worried going into Mission Crit that I wouldn't be fast enough, but my problem was that other people weren't fast enough, and that was really frustrating. I did find, though, that Red Hook was easier for me than Mission, because I was able to keep up the speed that I wanted to, compared to Mission Crit.
Yeah, let's talk about Red Hook. How was that experience?
Yeah.
And kind of give us the same thing with that you gave us at Mission.
So Red Hook was definitely a different kind of animal, for sure. I was a little more nervous about it, knowing that a lot more pros and really experienced riders were going to be there. But honestly, that was the last thing on my mind. the day kind of started out on a bad patch as it was. Like, we were really, really late, me and our team coordinator of Masters Division. He picked me up. We were late. Then there were a couple of things that happened in between, us actually getting to the course and me getting on the course to start. One of them being was there was like this ledge right next to where the barriers were on the sidewalk. And I was paying attention to the heat going on and not paying attention where I was walking. And I like slipped off the ledge and like rolled my ankle really hard. And I remember like sitting down and thinking like, oh my God, if this stupid ledge just ruined my opportunity to do maybe somewhat well at Red Hook, I'm going to just be so disappointed. I didn't really let it get to me. I just kind of like walked it off and, stay focused, stay positive. And then then I couldn't get money for my timing chip. And then I was trying to warm up and all these other things kept happening and distracted me. But by the time I did get to the finish, or to the start line rather, I was ready to go. Like I had a couple of friends around me who I was familiar with, who was like, they were there for me and they're like, you're going to be fine. Like, it's great. Like, don't worry about it. And then as far as the course went, like as soon as we went, it was the same exact scenario. Slow riders who weren't able to take the turns confidently, and I would start behind them. I just like, every time there was an opening where I was like, okay, I can get past them, it was like some girl who was like not taking a straight line, and it made me nervous. And I think that's the problem with Red Hook. It's like the fact that it's like the most well-known fixed gear crit that attracts the most people. So you're going to get the most amateurs. And obviously I am amateur, but the fact that I guess I can handle a little bit better sets me apart from that field. So it was really frustrating. I think I could have placed a lot better if I was not behind them.
Yeah, it always seems kind of frustrating because you have people like even like Juliet Elliott or somebody like that who gets crashed out by somebody who's a little less good at handling their bike and like kind of ruins their day a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I had actually ran into her after the last chance race, and I went up to her and I didn't know that she had crashed when I ran into her. And I was like, oh, hey, like, just want to let you know, like, you're a really big inspiration to me. You're like one of the few people that I followed before getting into this, and you motivated me to like just work every single day and so on and so on. And I was kind of confused because she felt distant in our conversation, and I'm based on all of her videos and Instagram, she just seems like super happy, like loves talking to people and whatever. And I was confused, like, gosh, why does she seem so distant? And then at the end of the conversation, I said, oh, good luck in the final, assuming that she made the final because she's so talented and just such a strong rider. She said, oh, I'm not going to the final. Some girl ran me into a barrier. And I was like, oh my God. First of all, I feel like a jerk for assuming that she went to the final. And second of all, I was like, what like an unfortunate circumstance. Like, it doesn't matter how strong you are. It matters how amateur some other riders are that could just ruin it for you. And just hearing that from her and like seeing the look on her face, I was like, wow, this is like what it's really about. It's just like completely luck. Yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely grateful that I stayed upright the entire race, both races. And I would say it was a successful race because of that. But part of me is like, oh, if I just maybe push myself a little bit harder, like, would I have ended up taking the fall, or would I have stayed upright and felt even better about how I did? But I guess, in the long run, I'll get to that point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, all you can really do is like look to the next race. And speaking of that, what are your plans from now? Like, you got your first two big crits out of the way. What are you setting up for now?
Well, it definitely was going to come down to how I felt about the two races before I made any more decisions. I definitely am going to do some road crits to get my handling and my pack skills down. But I've had a really good response from just the one time I went to the velodrome in New York. I did really, really well for have never been been on a velodrome before, and one of the directors, it's not Brian, but one of the guys on Pig Finder Racing has been talking to me a lot recently. Just like here and there, he'll be like, "Oh, when you come back to the velodrome, like you're really strong," so on and so on, and it's really encouraging, honestly. But the plans are definitely like hit the velodrome more and like pick up my speed and just get the experience that I need for that. But otherwise, honestly, I want to start looking for either like a serious fixed-gear team who will be able to send me to other fixed-gear crits. Unfortunately, it's like a catch-22 where it's like, oh, well, we want you to have experience riding fixed gear before we bring you onto a team, but I can't get that kind of experience because there's no races in New England that are fixed gear crits. So I'm kind of in that place right now where I'm like looking for a team that might bring me on something like maybe not as pro, just someone to like have fun and like pay for my lodging wherever I might go. But definitely I have my sights set on like pursuing fixed gear crits a lot more seriously. Definitely velodromes is a calling for me. And then in between I'm going to be doing road crits as much as I still really want to. But yeah, that's as far as I can see for right now.
So let's go back to that first track bike that you got. What bike was that?
That's the bike that I have now still. It's a Specialized Flankster. I've been pretty satisfied with it, but there's been a few bumps in the road where I was like, this is definitely not like the people who designed this were not like, yeah, this person's going to race 6-year crits. They're going to ride on a velodrome. And they're like, let's just make a track bike to sell. And I've been learning that the hard way. One of them being the dropout plates on it are proprietary, I'm pretty sure. So for one, they're just like crappy. Like they get eaten into really quickly, and it causes my wheels to slip in. I've also learned that my wheel set, the Mavic Ellipses, aren't that great either. They also have a tendency to slip. So those two things together have been kind of frustrating.
For sure. I wish Specialized would come back out with they used to make a Lankster Pro, and that bike is so sick. And then the bikes that the Specialized team uses are basically their Specialized Ale Sprint, their road bike, but they just changed the dropouts in the back. And I'm like, man, I wish you could sell those.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, I guess having it to be such like a specific, like custom thing for the team makes it that much more special for them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that maybe at one point the Lankster Pro wasn't selling that great, but it's such a sick bike. If you ever look them up, I wish they'd come back out with those. But yeah, what are you looking to buy? What's your like dream bike? I've had so many people on here that have bike sponsors, and I can't ask them this question because they're like,
oh. I mean, honestly, like at first I thought like going into 6-year crits, everyone was riding a carbon track bike. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe like pictures just make them look that glossy or that streamlined. But one of my friends who I've made over Instagram, Sydney Richardson, who's on Engine 11. Yeah. Those bikes look just so beautiful. Not even just the looks, but they just look like they have really great handling. And I'm probably biased because she rides one and she's really strong. Who knows? Though at this point in me riding, I haven't even like put my sight on one particular bike. It's more just like I want something other than what I have now. Engine 11, I mean, is kind of at the top of my list, and as long as it's aluminum and it's not going to break, I guess. And the dropouts are fine. Like, honestly, if I can get a bike that my wheels don't slip in, that'd be great. I feel like it would keep me from worrying about what else is going on in the bike while I'm riding, other than like, am I spinning? You know, or just a bike that works.
Yeah, Engine 11's rad, and also they have beautiful paint jobs. So. And Sydney's cool, so you gotta support Sydney. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think ideally, I would just like someone to make me a nice aluminum frame track bike, and then whatever, I'd paint it and do whatever I wanted to it. But sometimes I like the idea of having a brandless bike That way you're not really associated. Obviously if you're like riding a Pure Fix or any of those like mail ordered bikes, they have a bad connotation to them. And it's the opposite. Like if you ride a really, really nice bike, people assume you're an excellent rider. At that point, like if you're not a strong rider or I don't know, you might taint the reputation of the name, and vice versa. So sometimes I like the idea of a nameless bike, a brandless bike rather, because of that.
Yeah, for sure. I've always kind of been in that camp. I finally just got like a bike that's way better than I am a rider, so it motivates me to become a better rider. What are you listening to while you're training?
Oh man, what am I listening to? I'm definitely one of those people where I make a playlist and then I listen to that playlist like every single time I ride. I don't know if it's just like the same energy keeps me consistent with my riding, but mostly like I gotta say prime 2000, like year 2000 pop hit, like Britney Spears Toxic. I don't know what it is. Just like it's so good. It's got like really corny house beats, like a really catchy bass line, and really good like inspiring lyrics. Not really, but like that kind of stuff. And then I don't know, it just has to have some movement. But I'll just put that on for every single ride and I have it on repeat. And I guess when you have riding music, eventually you just kind of tune it out and it's just something that's there in the background. But I can't stand doing something like intervals without any music. It's not motivating and you get really bored, especially if you're doing your intervals on the same street every single time. Like, yeah, you just gotta have something like that moves you.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't understand. I've had people on here that can work out and do their training with no music, and I'm just like, I'm not one of those people. I have like, and a lot of the people I ride with, like we have a pretty good fixed gear community out here. Like it's not huge, but a lot of the people, a few of the guys went out and raced Red Hook, and then on Sundays we like, they will mostly, they're called Sunday Strong. They'll take their track bikes out and go climb mountains and stuff, and like, and all those dudes are always riding with headphones in.
Yeah, honestly, like when I'm doing like regimented training, I kind of forget you're not supposed to ride with headphones in.
Yeah.
It's just like you have to do it. I don't know. I drop the headphones when I'm riding in the city. Just because it's like so unpredictable here.
Yeah.
But if I'm like cruising down 25 miles an hour on a street, like when there's no cars, I'm like, fuck it.
For sure. I'm always like I always leave one earbud in. I just have one in. I have my left ear open so I can hear if cars are coming, but then I always have something in my right ear.
Yeah.
But if I'm commuting to work, I have a pretty like easy commute and the roads aren't crazy, so I usually have both headphones in and I'm usually listening to a podcast.
Yeah, it's funny actually. My commute to work is like, it's such a workout for me because there's only two ways to get to my work, and you either have to climb a huge hill where the traffic is like mild-ish, but then you get to work and you're disgusting. Or you have to take like the highway alternative street where it's like the street that people take if they don't want to get onto the highway, but they need to get there without stopping at a million lights.
Yeah.
And those are the only two ways to get there. And that like there's just a stretch of like a mile where it's like you have to go as fast as possible or else these cars like will run you over, and it's terrifying. It's a really great way to like get my heart racing for work and be like, yeah, I made it to work alive. Like, what a great day.
Oh, that's funny. So, what races are on your bucket list, as far as like beyond like Red Hook and Mission? Like, what other races would you love to make it out to one day?
Oh man, well, there's apparently a lot of fixed gear crits in the South. The person who had originally gotten me interested in fixed gear crits was riding a lot in the South. I'm not actually sure of all their names, but he had stayed in the South for like a month or two and completed 3 or 4, I think. I'm not entirely sure, but there was a good amount down there. So bucket list would be to kind of do the same thing and just kind of stay in one particular area where there's like a solid amount and train down there, make some connections and ride. I think as far as like next year goes, I think I'm going to stay in travel mode and go from Mission Crit to Red Hook and then Bone Machine, which is in, what is that, Oregon?
Yeah,
right?
It's in Portland.
Yeah, that's after Red Hook, right?
Well, this year it's going to be in July.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, it followed Red Hook very closely, but okay. I would like to do that one just because I think it has maybe equal attention as Mission, maybe a little bit less. But honestly, before I can like really set my sights on more fixed crits, I'm going to just do these road crits that are local. There's usually a really big turnout, even for the women's field, which I think is going to help me with my pack riding.
Yeah.
So I guess there's that, and then there's the fixed gear scene in Europe is so dense, and I would love to get over there, even to like spend a summer over there.
Yeah,
and
for
just
sure.
Knock all of them out. That would be so great.
I think the biggest series, the NL Crit in the Netherlands, there's like, I think they have 11 races.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, if you want to go over there and do those races, you just have to be so strong because you're competing with these guys who have this opportunity. But it's also like you want to go over there regardless of your strength because it's the only experience that you'll get riding with these guys.
For sure.
So
I think my number one bucket list race is the fixed 42. I just want to ride like a road race on a track bike. That just sounds like a dream to me.
You know, it's funny because when I had done the very small like road crit before going to Mission Crit, I was like, I wonder if they would tell me I'm not allowed to ride my track bike on this, like during this race, because like, I don't know, it's a bike. It's not like a fixed gear crit where, you know, it's no brakes, no gear, you know, all exempt, but is it the same, the opposite? Like, I feel like I might actually do a little bit better on my fixed gear bike during these races because I'm just so adapted to how my fixed gear works. I think that was my problem during that first road crit. It was like, oh, I only train like a quarter of the time on a road bike, but I'm really quick on my track bike. Like, how would that turn out?
For sure. Actually, there's a kid so I'm based out of Colorado, and in Western Colorado, there's this guy who's on Instagram as Rocky Mountain Fixie. I haven't actually met him yet, but I know last year he did a road race that we have here that's like a 50-mile, 9,000 feet of climbing road race, and he did it on a track bike last year, and he's doing it again this year on a track bike. And he said they didn't say anything. He signed up, he did the race, fixed gear, no brakes, and yeah, he's doing it again this year.
That's amazing. I bet like the coordinators of the race aren't really even looking out for that sort of thing. They probably think anyone who's going to race fixed gear on a road crit is like not really going to place well anyway. So like, what's the point?
Yeah, I think that it depends on if it's sanctioned by USA Cycling or not. Because USA Cycling, they check your bike and they'll be like, you know, fuck you, get off the course or whatever. But this race isn't. Right. This race isn't USA Cycling. It's just a private, you know, group that just puts on this race and yeah. So I just don't think that they cared. I think that they were like, oh, if you want to do this, then that's fine, but you're crazy.
I'm like, more power to him, really.
Yeah, that's how I feel. And I know I had one person, was that Heather? Or no, so I had this girl Brenda on the show, and I know she said that before she got into road cycling and stuff, she did a couple road races on a fixed gear bike. So I think as long as it's not USA Cycling, if the organizers are down with it, you can do it.
Oh man, that gives me like so many more ideas now.
Yeah, I know that we have there's a time trial here in Colorado, and this year they just added a single speed category, and this girl's been going out doing it fixed gear.
I would love to see Rhode Island or even like Massachusetts have something like that. I've been kind of flirting with the idea of trying to like put something together. It would just be another adaptation of like Red Hook, where it's like doing it in a parking lot on, for someone's birthday or whatever, but just like getting some fixed gear riders out, like coning off a circuit and doing something and hoping that it evolves. But the problem is that there are just basically no fixed gear riders, or if they are riding fixed, they're, not even flirting with the idea of taking the brake off, which, I'd be happy to, coordinate something where people can use a brake, like maybe. But it's
that sounds scary to me.
Yeah, brakeless people with brakes. I don't know. That's
you have like a whole like little pack of people who all flip over their handlebars when they slam on their brake.
Yeah, but like I would love to have something like that here, but we don't even have enough people to put a race together. And Boston is just far enough, and in relation to how far things are in New England, like you can drive an hour from Providence and get to Boston, but like people from Boston don't want to really come to Providence, but that's where like the majority of the riders are. So it's hard to even lure people in. We were thinking of doing a car park race. Like we have one here that's like 7 stories, and that would be a perfect amount of floors to do a race in. We had some contacts going on with the owner of the car park. And we were like super excited to get it going and, have it ready for like midsummer or something, and it just fell apart. And like, that was the closest that I've got. And it got me like really excited. And I was like, yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to get a lot of riders out, like make some connections and like hopefully start something real. And then it kind of fell apart. So. Oh,
that's a bummer. That sounds like a fun race. That sounds like a travel worthy race.
Yeah. And I mean and the guy who is the owner of the car park is also a cyclist. And when we were talking to him, he was really interested in the idea, but he was concerned about like liability and, how much money we have to get for an ambulance and just all of the little things that come together that make it really expensive. And Danny, my friend who's on Team 2020, she is part of the Brown University cycling team, and they get surprisingly a lot of support from the college, like as far as money goes, and Brown like really dominates Providence and what goes on in downtown, so they wouldn't back something like that because I guess it's just a little bit too edgy for them. So it's unfortunate. It's like, oh, you guys really fund the Brown cycling team, but when it comes to this, like, you don't want to have anything to do with it. It would be like, completely community based, and it would take a lot of hands to put it together.
That's the biggest barrier to putting on races, is just the sheer cost that it takes to put on the races. And that's why I really commend people like James Grady and David Trimble to be able to do what they've done. It's amazing. Well, hey, I think this is a good place to end it. Do you have anything else to say before we head out?
Oh man, right fast. Thank you so much for having me. It was like, I felt pretty humbled knowing that like there's someone out there and other people out there who are like kind of, watching out. And even so far, like the people that I've met, who seemingly are maybe inspired by me. Just a couple of friends who started riding bikes since I started riding bikes. It feels really good, and it like feels good like that you reached out, and just a little bit more motivation to keep going.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely keep it up. I love I just love hearing about people's experiences, and I don't want this show to be all one thing, so I love being able to bring people on that are at different places in their cycling, just so we can kind of like create that community and inspire more and more people to ride. Where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me on Instagram primarily. That's where I do most of my posting. It's Soft Swerve, the SOFT with 3 R's. And then other than that, I'm pretty much non-existent on the internet.
Same here. I don't even have a Save the Track Bike Facebook page.
Yeah. People just, I think Facebook's now for the old people, but thank God Instagram exists.
All right, Jocelyn, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for having me, for sure.
All right, that does it for another episode of Save the Track Bike. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for supporting the podcast. Shout outs to our sponsors, Hexagon Cycles. Go visit them at hexagoncycles.com. Shout outs to fixgearcrit.com. Go visit us on Instagram at Save the Track Bike, savethetrackbike.com. The music is Slag Girl by Vitamin Pets. And we'll see you next time.